Hello, Professor Ha. My name is Sean Huynh, and I will be doing my presentation on the social class versus health and comparing the US with other countries around the world. I am in your Sociology 101 class, section 2783. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Um, as I wrote earlier, there has been a very huge correlation seen between social class and the health of the individual. And it's been very apparent over many years with many different research to back up that claim, especially in the US, where there's definitely a correlation between the social class of an individual and the health, where more you see more of the higher social class will have a higher health status, while the lower social class will have a lower health status. And um, from the words of the late deceased U.S. Senator Paul Wellstone, he says that we cannot close the achievement gap until we close the gap investment between the poor and rich schools, no matter how motivated some students are. Now, this was a very interesting quote that he said because recently we are currently seeing a very big divide between the poor and the rich, or the lower social class versus the higher social class. And this giant gap in the investment is always gonna be very prevalent in the school system, where you're gonna be a very big population of the poor and a very big population of the wealthy, and they're never gonna really coincide with each other. And therefore, these kids will then see that these gap in the investments for their education is going to diminish over time dramatically. Actually, um, these are all kind of different factors that may lead to why the lower class individual may have a poor lifestyle than the people of the higher social class. They may in turn affect how health is perceived really to the individual based off their social class. Now, that's a lot about America. But after watching a few videos and documentaries that you've shown us, I was curious about people's health and social class correlation around the world in other countries. Other countries have better, or, well, let's not say better, but they have decent health care where it's more universal and very different from America. And it's always been curious to see if, with these different systems implemented, will you still see a trend in lower social class equals unhealthy versus higher social class equals healthy? And that's what I'll be talking about today. Will be to see if other countries will still see the same trend as America does when social class and health. So the first country I'm going to be talking about would be the USA. Now, everybody already has a very big stereotype of the USA where we have all our fast foods, we have freedom, we have guns, we have beer. So already we're not in the most positive limelight. We are definitely stereotyped to be very fat and, put ketchup on everything. But it's interesting because this kind of correlation between the social class and health does exist in America. Nicole Stevens wrote in an article that she written in 2012, theorized that people from lower social class will receive poor education, and this poor education will therefore lead to them making bad decisions, and vice versa, where the quality people of higher social class will receive a higher quality of education, and therefore will make better decisions. So, in a nutshell, she's saying that people of lower social class is not getting the correct education to be told to not eat hamburgers all the time. They don't know that it's full of fat. They don't know it's full of sodium, and they don't know that it could potentially cause a heart attack. They just know it's delicious. While people of the higher social class will see eating fast food all the time would be bad because of all these reasons, because they were well educated. Now, nowadays, it seems kind of weird to think that people can be very uninformed about these certain aspects about food when information is in abundance everywhere you go. It's on the internet, it's in the papers, we walk around, like there's information about nutrition everywhere. But when you're not motivated to really sustain your health, then you're not really going to go out and search for all these new ideas or these new topics about how to eat healthy. which then leads to my next point that Nicole brought up about how people of the higher social class tend to be healthier because they have higher expectations placed on them. They have higher expectations from their parents, they have higher expectations from their mentors, they have higher expectations from their teachers. And when you're surrounded, as you grow up and you're constantly surrounded by these sort of expectations and optimism around you, thinking that you're going to do good things and great things, you already are thinking towards more of how to stay healthy because you want to meet these expectations. You can't meet these expectations of these people to succeed in life if you're going to die early. And so lower social class people will not really receive much of an education and not also have very much expectation placed on them. Society in itself may have given up on these poor class people, and they will no longer see the value of why do they need to try to stay healthy? Why do they need to necessarily stick around and such if nobody really expects them to do anything good? It's kind of hard to wake up in the morning and go about your day when nobody really expects much of you. It's discouraging. And so this will lead to this sort of really decline in the mental health, the decline in health and decline in motivation to really stay healthy. And the shift towards the trend of lower social class will be of a poor individual health. And finally, Nicole Stephen also brings up the whole mental health idea of people of higher social class will have a better mental health of, they're more confident, they believe in themselves more, they think they can do it, and they believe that they are destined for great things. They're always going to react in a positive way and want to stay healthy, find ways to make themselves healthy, live a better lifestyle, not being put themselves in dangerous positions, while people of lower class do not have that sort of mental health awareness of, hey, I'm super confident. They're more of, I'm not worth that much. I'm all right. If I were to die, nobody would care type thing. And that mentality itself kind of leads towards I'm here for a good time, not a long time mentality. And they start doing really crazy things that may eventually affect their lifestyle, their health, and their life, and could ultimately result in death. So this overall research study has definitely showed that there is a strong correlation of the social class with health. But this is kind of due to these kind of mental health, better expectations, and just general education to tell them not to do these things. So enough about America. Let's see if other countries are different because they have different healthcare system, they have different social class, they have different cultures. So I'm going to start off talking about China. So in China, it's very interesting to think that actually the trend that that I'm talking about right now of high social class, better health, was actually flopped in the 1990s or before the 1990s, where people of lower social class actually had better diets, they had better caloric intakes than the people of the higher social class, and that was just due to the fact that they were farmers, they were more self-sustaining, while people that were higher and working in cities, they were more managed by the government and given food and resources by the government. And especially with the whole communism and Mao Zedong type thing, it was a more community type thing. So they were essentially equal. So there was really no higher social class and lower. It was kind of equal. And then there's the farmers that were self-sustained. But then when this kind of shift in politics kind of occurred after the 1990s, there was a very big decline in the health of the higher social class versus the lower social class of farmers, self-sustaining people. Excuse me. But, you know, the Chinese Health and Nutrition Survey did see that there was, once they dismantled the social welfare back in the 1990s, this caused the urban people to spend more money on non-food necessities that they didn't really need to do before. So this definitely caused a decline in the caloric intake because they just didn't understand how to do it. However, afterwards, though, the shift kind of reset and fixed itself because it kind of did go through a very extreme change. And as the years progress, there is still a social class of the lower social class versus the high social class, but there's back to that general trend of the lower social class will have less food or be less healthy, and the higher social class will be more healthy. And that's just due to your basic, the higher your income, the more money you have, and the more you can spend on food and items of nutrition. While as you're in a lower social class, you're kind of mostly thinking of how do I just get food in general, and therefore it may not be the most healthiest choices for you to available. So it's cool to kind of look at China and kind of look at how this general trend wasn't a system before, but therefore over time it still reset itself. Trend still came about and be very prevalent in China despite having a very reverse system. So this kind of shows that this kind of general trend is a very powerful trend that definitely exists despite, you know, despite having a very different type of culture. And China definitely saw it changing, and now it's back to this normal global trend that we may have seen of high social class equals healthier, lower social class equals not so healthy. So I'm going to then shift over to a different part of the world, Chile. A more intensive study was definitely taken in Chile where they were not even just examining social class. They were examining how healthy an individual can be based off their education level, their mom's education level, their sex, zone, region of residence, and such. And for overall, you definitely do see that people of higher social class will have better mental health, they'll have better stability, and have better health in general versus the people of lower social class in Chile. Um, from Kevin Carriero's study, he definitely saw that better educated mothers are seen to be a higher social class because in Chile there's no such thing as free public education. Uh, Parents are seen to be as higher social class because they afford to send their daughters to school, and when the daughters go to school, that means they will get educated and that they will have social standing. And the residence actually matters a lot because rural versus urban, if you live in an urban area, you actually have more resources to be healthy. You have more resources telling you how to be healthy versus rural areas. You don't really have that sort of guideline. So it kind of leads towards this educational factor of how to be healthy when you have, lower social class versus a higher social class. And they actually saw in Gallardo's study that the city of Santiago, the main capital of Chile, emerges as one of the regions with the best opportunity for good health. People is happy, they have all the resources available to them, and they have all the abundance of nutrition available to them in the urban areas versus the rural areas. And this kind of just definitely shows a very clear definite between a high social class and a low social class because it's not cheap to live in the city. It's expensive, but it's worth it because you're gonna have a better quality of life, you're gonna have a better education, you're gonna have more resources, and therefore you'll be healthy. So definitely in Chile, there is still, the very apparent trend of the higher your social class, the healthier you will be. And of course, there's definitely some outliers out there where people aren't following that trend, but it's a general trend sociologically that the higher you are in the system, the better well fed or the more well fed you are. Um, and then next, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the next country, Japan. Now, I really enjoyed learning about Japan in this paper because I really enjoyed how the documentary that we watch of healthcare across the world. In Japan, people love the doctors. They love the healthcare system. They love to go in and just visit, check their general health, and leave. So for me, I'm already biased in thinking that Japan's gonna not follow this trend at all. People like going to the doctors. People like their healthcare system. They take care of them. So therefore, why would social class matter in this sort of trend? So Yoshiki Ishikawa actually did a study and reported that Japan's not all that different. Japan, so so Japan may not necessarily reflect the same pattern of relationship as other developed countries. But then the survey results were consistent to findings from the US. They're the same. People are not having the same sort of exposure to how to keep a good general health if they're of a lower social class because they're not being educated enough, because they're not getting the right expectations put on them, and they're not being told that this is healthy, this is unhealthy, and you should really live towards this longevity factor versus a good time, not a long time type thing. And so people of higher educations in Japan were able to access, seek, and process, then act on sort of health information that were given to them or that are available, while people of lower social class did not really care too much to seek and access new information about health and how to be better. Um, and then for the last country that I have, it's going to be talking about Spain, where the social gradient was studied to verify if this correlation still exists in Spain. And David, sorry, not David, Daniel Casado did a study where social inequalities in health with respect to social class have consistently shown that unskilled manual workers have a poorer health status than the remaining social classes. It's the same. It's the same in Spain. People of lower social class cannot receive a healthier diet. They cannot receive a better education to tell themselves to have a healthier diet or have it be healthier in general. And people, as you move on up in life, you will therefore be more motivated to stay healthy. You will be taught how to be stay healthy and how to gain access to resources if you don't know how to be healthy. And Spain is no different. So after discussing all these separate countries, you definitely see that there is always going to be a very big global trend of social class with health. And every country has a different culture. Every country has a different system. Every country has a different style of thinking, and yet we still see this social trend of their social class correlating strongly with their health, and that's not good because we need to take care of everybody. Health care and education should not be something is very that should be a very problematic issue for people. That should be something available to people and not be the limiting factor to these people on how to be healthy. Like, granted, sure, the amount of income you make can be a limiting factor, but don't let it be health because everybody should be entitled to a healthier lifestyle. So, to wrap this up, all countries, no matter where you go, it's a very big global problem of there will be a correlation between social class and the health of the individual. People will get the education they need. They will make better decisions. They have better expectations and therefore will be healthier than the people of the lower social class. Social class dictates greatly on how people make their decisions if they think they're expendable versus they think they're valuable and they need to keep on living. There are a lot of different variables that can go along with it that could say otherwise to this, but overall, once you get all these surveys put together, there's thousands of people in these surveys, and it just kind of shows that no matter what you do, social class will dictate health of the individual. Now, the next problem is how are we going to fix that, and what can we do to really make change? I hope you enjoyed my talk, and I enjoyed being in your class, and I wish you uh, best of luck with grading, and thank you very much for the semester.